And I was the advocacy guide.
I hope everybody has something to eat. I am sorry, I will ask you to work during your eating because in half an hour we are going to leave. So it was 5-minute breaks, and I'm sorry we can't have more. You will save half an hour of presentation. I will just show you 2 slides as a startup. First, to set up the scene. What we said when we did our presentation is that we believe that there is about 20 to 30 million people within prostitution globally. We believe, according to the figures which exist, that about 50,000 can exist prostitution every year, which means that over 10 years, 500,000 people exist prostitution, which is a lot and which is nothing. So we are a research center, and you will see how our research center is working. Figures, 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 facts given to policymakers. This is the most important starting point. Do we want in the next 10 years continue to work helping only 2% of the people to escape prostitution, or do we work in order to amplify this effort? And this is why we are going to work today. This slide is simple. It looks complicated, but it's very simple. We have in our research center accumulated and selected over 20 years 3,000 reports. And you can download them. We need to improve a little bit the interface, but 2,000 out of 3,000, 2/3 are in English. And they covered 8 different domains. And we are going to discuss with you after on which of those areas we want to work. When we are talking about a system of prostitution, we would like to have a systemic approach with this landscape in mind and work question by question. So, social and cult, and this map has a lot of similarities with violence against women. And all our research are not research for the sake of research. We don't care about research. It's the sake of how we reduce exploitation. Cultural context. When you go a little bit deeper, what is the cultural context? We see at least 3 categories: history, modern, new trend. I will not go to the details. Everything will be online, and we will work with you with what is important. But the first things on which we have to work, and on which we do work, is how to understand the cultural context and how much we can transform or move in this cultural context. Sex buyer, non-sex buyer. This is, during years, effort has been put on victims. During years, effort has been put on criminal. How much effort has been put on sex buyers? Do you think, according to all what you know, that we need to go further in understanding some piece of the question of sex buyers? So this is a question where we believe that we need to discuss together how much we know, how much we don't know, and how much we should progress. Multiple phases of prostitution, I will not go through that. You know that by heart. I will just emphasize that there are new trends and there are hidden, non-visible forms. And we should never forget the existence and the part of not visible form of prostitution, which might be a lot. Victim experience, you cannot know how happy I am that today we have as many ladies, the overcomer, who have exit prostitution, and as Dorchen is saying, who should help us the most to explain what is the denial. Prostitution is a societal denial. Who else but you can explain this denial? Sex industry is as with any kind of criminalities, except that for a $300 billion industries, they are quite clever, more clever than the people in petrol, in finance, or in any other industries, and they are lobbying, and we have to counter-attack all their ideology. Our discussion is now, our work is now a matter of word. And we need to understand and to work on their ideology. We'll come back to this one. What the government can do, what NGOs can do, how much the work done by government is changing the things. Is it worth spending money on a lot of money on exiting the people, or is it better to spend more money on prevention? How do we balance the efforts? How do we implement really the stuff? So this is where, and we will not address all those issues today, but this is where we would like to work with you to define the strategy of our research matters. What is important in this landscape, and how do we work on that? Okay. Quantitative data. There are many data which exist, and we need more data. We need to better understand trend. It's classical. And internet, the world now is globalization, and internet is changing all the things. So my word also on this slide is to say, because we have a full view of this context, we can address some specific questions. Okay. Next slide. So we selected 6 topics from Europe. We believe that we should work on a first topic, which is why somebody is a sex buyer or not a sex buyer. We believe that youth is something which has to be taken into account because it's a deep subject. Internet, child prostitution is bigger than we think. Migration is a new phenomenon, and precarious is not changing, and we need to have that in mind. So my question, sorry to have been a bit long, it leaves you some time to eat, but now we really are going to work. We would like to know, in your context, in USA, in Latin America, there are some people from Latin America, in Africa, some people from Asia maybe. We would like to know what are the 2 or 3 major projects you think we need to work. We've prepared a document which is an evaluation questionnaire. We will use it after. But we can have half an hour discussion. Who can give us a first ideas? We will pass the second microphone. This one? Who have an idea? Who would like to give some ideas and explain why he thinks it's an important subject?
Let me see.
Take mine.
Thank you. Thanks very much. I apologize for being late. I was supposed to be here earlier, but I just have one comment. I work with the Carter Center in Atlanta, former President Jimmy Carter, who has been writing about this. And I just, an observation that I've made, I think the research is extremely important. But the main point I'd like to make, I know that it says Fondation Scelles, right? This is a foundation. So the number 1 proposal I would like to give you as a foundation is survivor groups need support, need financial support. And I don't know if it's a funding foundation or what the basis is, but something I've come away with in recent years working on this is that there is a lot asked of survivors that I often feel guilty asking survivors to speak or to come to an event or whatever, and there's never funding. And these are, you know, it's really, really, really wrong for us to be talking about these issues without survivors in the room. So the first thing I would say is there should be funding for survivors groups, most importantly, that they should be the first in line to send in their proposals, be able to pay their travel, but not only that, their salaries. I mean, they need to be supported. So that's just my contribution to this discussion.
Rita Hernandez, director at Comisión Unidos contra la Trata. And I think if we're talking about proposed research subjects, I think for us in Mexico, the issue of sex trafficking in the field of sexual tourism has a lot to do with child prostitution. And most of the girls that are being used for that industry are children. Our minor girls are being sold and bought every day in 22 of our states. So for us, prostitution, migration, and child prostitution is very important.
Thank you. My name is Chandra. First of all, reading this research, I want to suggest you not putting child prostitution because there is no child prostitution. What happened is child prostitute with a D. And why I mention this? Because children never be a prostitute. So first, my suggestion is to do the research is about data. We don't have enough data, a big data that we need. Even in the United States itself, we are lack of data. Data of the children that is trafficked or exploited, data which a survivor that already reintegrate to the community, the data how many percentage that children that already rescue, I'm sorry to say rescue is very disrespectful, they already get help and get help percentage in reintegration, get education, get help, skill to get the job. And then the data about how many children that don't get enough support and go back to the life. We need to have that according to solve this problem. Besides how we can end the demand side because of we don't have enough tool, legislation to touch base on this in the United States or in most countries. And the next is how we can create the housing possible for all the trafficking survivors. So if they have housing, there always a service included in this housing, which is education and skill. Because otherwise, this is a cyclus. If you don't get service, it will go back and back and back and back, never end. And it will be a long process for them to be treated as a human being like us, able to stand independently. Thank you.
And I would just like to respond to that by saying that the Scelles Foundation does not support the use of the phrase child prostitution at all. We do not believe that a child could be a prostitute. A child who is prostituted is a victim of sexual exploitation. And so I just wanted to make that very clear. It was an unfortunate typographical error. But
Thank you so much. I'm Dorchen Leithold from the Coalition Against Trafficking in Women and Sanctuary for Families. And you know, we are contending, we're actually building a campaign against Amnesty International, and Amnesty International is calling for the decriminalization of the sex industry. And what would be very helpful, they're pointing to countries like New Zealand that they claim have decriminalized the sex industry, and they claim that people in prostitution or trafficking, prostitution in particular in New Zealand, are benefiting enormously. Their safety is being protected. I think a study of what's actually happening to people in prostitution in New Zealand or in Germany or in the Netherlands is very, very important. I suspect that decriminalization of the sex industry is the same thing as legalization of the sex industry, and it is a disaster for people in prostitution. But we really need the data to prove that. So we would be very, very grateful if the Scelles Foundation could work on this.
Thank you very much.
My name is Esohe Agatise. I'm of the Coalition Against Trafficking and Iroko. I just wanted to make reference to that first line about why men buy sex. I think there's quite a lot of research on that. There's been quite a lot of work, and it's relatively evident from the kind of words, some websites you go to, the comments that men make and stuff like that. What I think would be much more important or very relevant is the question of implementation of laws regarding sex trafficking, regarding violence against women. Why do governments not adequately implement these laws, and how can they be pushed to do so? And then also the question of how do we encourage them to put in more resources as regards the question of violence against women? Because many governments, they still do not consider that a priority. So how do we pull it up as a priority subject globally?
Thank you very much. Sorry.
Hi, I'm Bridget Perrier. I'm with Space International, and I'm the co-founder of Sex Trade 101. And where research is needed, and no one's really talking about it, and the research that's out there is shoddy, is the John research. And I'm not saying that we need to interview a John. We need to interview the John, his intimate partner, and the woman he abused. And if we don't have that accurate interview of both other sides, then we're not going to get the data that we need. We know, us exploited women know, that Johns who buy sex is about power and control. But we also need, I'm experiential. I can talk about it. But we also need that data. And, without that research there, the Johns are still going to win. They're going to win the rights to buy sex. You go to Saint Martin and it's paraded out like it's a part of the vacation package. Go to the brothel, have a good time. After the bars in Saint Martin, they give you little flyers and you think they're after hours, but they're really brothels. No one interviews the Johns in-depthly, and I would love to do that research.
Hi, I'm Dia. I'm from NYU, just a student. One point that I'd like to make for the Research Foundation that might be of interest is the connection between rural and the urban cities, transfer between the women and the girls. Especially, I'm from Indonesia, and I've noticed that the people we're working with there, the survivors, have some sort of connection with the rural areas. And I've noticed that there are only some sort of rural areas that they target, and there should be some sort of networking going on there. The ability to know the network in which they work and operate would be very helpful to do some sort of intervention in the future. And to know, I understand this is probably going to be part of the vulnerable youth communities, but I think it's also very, very important to know the actors and the way that they operate this network for future research. Thank you.
My name is Ruchira Gupta. I'm from Apne Aap, Coalition Against Prostitution and Coalition Against Trafficking in Women. And I feel that a lot of research is needed on the impact of cutting off funds for the most marginalized girls and women and youth. So I think we just need much more research on vulnerabilities of youth, because I see a pattern in all the countries I work that budgets are being cut and putting more girls and more women at risk. while even systems for accessing justice are being cut off, even ways of reporting against the demand is being cut off. So we need to figure out like the four basic things, basic needs of the most marginalized, who are most trafficked: food, clothing, housing, shelter, education, but also access to justice, and how to do research on that and to show global patterns in that.
Thank you. First of all, thank you. It's a dream come true to be here with you. We admire so much your work from Mexico. I'm Rosy Orozco from Comisión Unidos contra la Trata, Commission Against Human Trafficking. And I think something that we are missing all, and it's something that I discovered it's so important, is to work with pimps in jail. When they are in jail, the pimps, the traffickers, it's so important. All the data they have, we can learn about Jones, we can learn about the way they act, why they do it, and also about the victims. Of course, I agree with you that the victims are the most important part of all this fight, and that I think that we can find ways to give them, we call it la caña de pescar, la caña de pescar, the fishing rod. And that now we have to look for the way that we finance this with entrepreneurship, social entrepreneurship, to find a way, that we can be self-sustainable, and that the victims will find the way to feel they are the ones who achieve that they are successful. So I think it depends on us to find those ways for them to, we call them supervivors, not survivors, but supervivors, because they are heroes. They are the ones who achieve those goals. And I think the pimps also, we have 4 pimps now that are coming out of jail, and now they are activists with us against human trafficking. And they are very important keys on this fight. One was operating here in New York. He, 6 years was operating here. He had a goal to have her victims 60 times every day with a client, with 60 clients. He was mad. And he's now an activist with us. So we have to also have some data from them, and that's important, I think.
We will succeed by a new idea, by disruptive idea, by working through the periphery, and I really like this kind of ideas.
Thank you. I'm Chitra Raghavan. I'm a professor of psychology at John Jay College, and I'm a researcher. I do a lot of work in violence against women and sex trafficking, and I'm also a therapist. I want to support the idea of doing research with clients, Johns, or sex buyers. And part of that is it's going to bring awareness to men who are in grave denial that this happened. So it's not for the reasons that maybe we think about it, but men just don't want to think about people that they know, their colleagues, their brothers, their fathers, going to prostitutes. They don't want to think about it. And when it happens, they deny it. And part of the blindness in this society and other societies is that men don't talk about it. And doing research with men who buy sex forces men who don't buy sex to think about it. That's part of the importance. We know what these men are going to say. Women love it. Women want to do it. Women just get it on. Right? We know these answers. They're not going to give us anything new or exciting. But it is going to bring awareness. I do want to say about 25 years ago, there was a very important domestic violence study where they asked the woman, the victim, why do you think he hit you? And then they asked the guy, why did you do it? And they did it separately and they did it together, and those results revolutionized the way we think about domestic violence. And so I think asking the woman who worked and asking her client about the same incident is actually going to bring insight to the outside world. Unfortunately, not to the client, but to the men and women who don't understand how damaging this is. So I want to support that idea.
if I just may follow up on your point, because in France in 2004 we released a first study on the sex bias. But what is also extremely interesting to research and to understand is that sex bias are a minority, but a majority of men stand in solidarity with those sex bias, even if they are not sex bias themselves. That's the key issue, is that there is a solidarity to maintain this male privilege, even for men, even from men who don't benefit it directly. That's what we have to break. We have to isolate the sex bias, and we have to get a majority, and that's a huge task, because this male privilege and this patriarchal right tradition of controlling over women's bodies is clearly interconnected with all of the other male privileges. And that's why a majority of men don't want to dissociate from the bias. And I think we have to concentrate efforts on this to circle and to isolate those sex bias and mobilize and break this solidarity, this male solidarity.
I just remembered one thing, so I'm taking the mic again. Is that, we desperately need research on the fact that in prostitution you don't earn more, you earn less, and actually you're living in debt bondage. So the economics of prostitution and who does it benefit? Because, today, for example, in the Coalition Against Trafficking, in Women panel, suddenly there was somebody who was transgender who stood up and said, you'll deprive us of livelihoods if you criminalize the buyers. But actually, it's not the people who are prostituted who are making money. So if we can have some research on that, that would be very helpful.
I will come to you, but since you are here, I come to you.
So first of all, I think it's important to do research to get numbers. I'm from Germany. I'm a survivor of prostitution in Germany, where it's completely legal. We don't have any regulations. We have some law against trafficking, but it's not connected to prostitution, so it's very complicated to do something on that. We need research in Germany because we don't know nothing, because it's not regulated. Nobody's doing anything against it. We don't find out. We don't have health services, things like that. We don't know anything. In Germany today can disappear 500 women. Nobody will even know that they are disappeared, That's the problem. And to find out something about the prostitutors. They are not clients, they are prostitutors, and they don't respect us. I just recommend, have a look at the John's forums, have a look at the internet, and if these are closed in internet forums, just go in, give you a name like they do, I have a name in a John's forum, and I can read what they are talking in between themselves, and you don't need to know anything more than what they are writing about the women.
Yes. Very true. We are a bit short of time. We have 5 minutes.
So she didn't speak, so I just quickly, just to build on what Ruchira said, the bit of research that is really desperately needed is the economics of the sex trade. She said, who is benefiting? But I keep saying, and I want more research to be able to prove this, that it's organized crime behind it. It's big porn that is much more powerful now, that is funding these sex worker organizations. I want to see the financing behind these thousands and thousands of organizations that are being funded by Open Society and all this stuff. I want to see the financing behind the pro lobby. I think we need that information.
I would like to say that, hi, Jeanette from Kentucky, Space International. There are 3 things we need to do: arrest, adjudicate, and incarcerate. Those 3. But in order to do that, we must support the victim witness. It is only the victim witness that can make the criminal justice system move. So it's important, thank you, it's important to support the survivors, because without that, the criminal justice system cannot work, period. Okay? Yes, we know that some of the police are involved. We do know, but they're not all involved. But they do not have victim witnesses that can get through the the rigors of the system when you're prosecuting. And what we need is massive supports for the victim survivor as they move through the criminal justice system, because until we do that, we cannot stop the buyers, the traffickers, and organized crime.
Well, as an Indigenous woman from Canada, we have legislation that is supposed to curb the demand, but they're not acting on it. But also, I'm tired of seeing the organizations get millions of dollars to do research, and their research is my story, and they do nothing with it. They put out a fancy couple pamphlets in their little booklet, and what does it do? It gets read and put on a shelf. We need research done by survivors. I want to do research. I got my master's degree. I can do the research. I know how to interview people. I want to, because I've been doing research in all my intakes, and all my intakes are showing me my girls are coming from brokenness.
It's a $300 billion, so there is a job for everybody.
Another thing in support of the survivor movement. I'm a survivor from England. I was exploited at 15, involved for 11 years, heavily entrenched in prostitution. Only the other week, I've set up a project to go in as a survivor to work in prevention and early intervention in my community, because I don't want to see any other girl, young woman, boy, man be exploited in the way I was. But my criminal record is still following me since 1988. So, and I know many, many, many other women are silenced because they were criminalised as children for their own abuse that is now prohibiting them from speaking out. So there's a few of us who fight and fight and fight for thousands and thousands and thousands of women who have got no fight left because this has killed them. Prostitution has killed, they are the walking dead. And we represent them women, and we need to fight globally to stop persecuting women in their surviving years for the abuse that happened to them as children.
So thanks a lot. We know who we are working for. We know we are working for all the women tonight who are going to be on the streets, and we would like to be outside somewhere else. Now, I'd like to conclude by asking you to fulfill a questionnaire. There are some questions. I think everybody can read it. If you can fulfill this questionnaire, and Yves will conclude after. Or now.
Thank you, dear friends, to share with us your inspiring thoughts and questions. As you understand, it's just a beginning, of course. We have a lot of work to do, if possible, together. So we try to improve researches, context, and I hope we can every year have some kind of meeting here or elsewhere in the world to share the improvement, the failure too, and the implementation of good laws. There is some good laws. There are less law implemented. So we need all the civil society to inspire the official institution. So thank you for your thoughts. We have to contact you in following weeks and months to share the thoughts after this kind of meeting. What kind of priorities are us? And thanks you again to spend some time with us. It's a difficult subject, but it's so good to see we are not alone to share such difficult topics. But it's so much better to work with difficult topics. So thanks you again, and I hope we see you again as soon as possible. Thank you. Of course, we have some documentation online and on paper, if you want to.
So there are 7 questions that you are asked to fulfill. Overall satisfaction. What you think was interesting. How we can help. In which subject you would be interested to partner with us. Are there people who could be interested in our work? And do you think you can help us with some fundraising initiative? You know people or you have some ideas? And if you have any comments, please share the ideas. And we are really committed. Please leave your email, and we will send you all the document of this all the meetings and all the document of this mail. It's a working process. And really, many thanks.